My name is Nicole Garneau, and I'm an artist. I'm doing a project called Heat '05, which is a year of daily performances to mark the 10-year anniversary of the 1995 Chicago heat wave disaster. I started making work outside, and I live close to the lake, so I started exploring the beach. And it's January in Chicago, so the beach is cold. And what I realized was happening was that in a way that I hadn't experienced before, that I was really trying to deal with the reality of Chicago weather every single day and make performances or make art pieces that in which I really just placed myself in that reality and dealt with whatever was happening. So one day it might mean that if there was a really big snowfall, I thought it would be gorgeous if I would dress all in red and do some kind of dance in the snow. And on that day, it was really quite beautiful because it was sunny. It had just snowed. The snow was dry. It was really quite lovely to be in it. And then, but on another day, it might be a horrible, horrible snowstorm with, kind of biting wind and ice in my face. And for me, it was interesting to just experience and explore that too. And even just the kind of acknowledging the reality of the natural settings of here in Chicago started to me to become part of the heat wave. Because the heat wave in some way obviously is about the weather. One of the reasons that so many people died in the heat wave was because the heat went on for so long, it was so hot for so many days in a row. We can adjust to 24 hours of heat or 48 hours of heat. But, once we start to get into 3, 4, 5 days, that's when people really, really start to suffer. So I thought, well, from a performance point of view, how do we approach a durational project or a project that's about endurance as performance, so that it kind of starts to explore the content of the heat wave disaster from a more conceptual framework. And then I just thought, if you're going to mark something like the deaths of over 700 people, you should do that in kind of a serious and earnest way. And if I'm going to kind of use that material as my material, I personally feel like it should be hard. It should involve some kind of labor or sacrifice on my part. So then the idea of performing every day or making art every single day became something that kind of made sense to me, that felt hard enough and felt like labor and felt like I could do this project and explore this content with integrity. So I think I first started out by counting 739 things, and I made some pieces where I collected 739 beach stones and made piles of them at the beach. I tried to divide them into piles by number of deaths per day. Then I made a pile of 739 ice cubes on the beach. I lined up 739 twigs in a row. And really, it's a lot of times just about what would it look like to see 739 twigs in a row? There's other ways of looking at the number 739. So you can add 7 plus 3 plus 9, and you get 19. So then sometimes I've been making some work based on the number 19, or based on 1 plus 9 is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1, with the idea that 739 somehow breaks down to the number 1. Contemplate the number 739. I didn't even understand what that number was. Last week I deposited about 19 self-addressed stamped postcards in Rogers Park, and I asked people on the postcard, I said, if you find this, please list 19 things you would do if you knew you had only 2 months to live, and drop it in the mail. So this is the first one I've gotten, and I really like this text, and so I thought it would be interesting for each of the 19 things that she lists here that she would do if she were to die in 2 months. I'm gonna throw a piece of bread into the lake, and then we can watch them float away. Marry my boyfriend of 3 years. Two, put out my comic book. 3, travel around the world and stay in Egypt for 1 week. Were the victims of the heat wave thinking about what they hadn't done Or what were they thinking about in their last moments of life? Or what would be the 5 things that they would do if they could do something else before they died?
7. Visit my friends one last time. 8. See as many. So, but I think about, the idea of floating this person's last 19 wishes out into the water. I don't know how far they'll go before they sink. Maybe they'll get eaten. Oh, see, wow, look at that. There's a whole flock of seagulls that has descended upon this bread. It's kind of interesting to think about all these birds eating this bread, and the idea maybe that, that this woman's words are in the bodies of these birds, and they'll fly wherever, deposit digested portions of the bread around Chicago or around Loyola Beach. It's interesting to think about. For me, it's been really interesting just the way that it has evolved on its own, or the things that have happened as a result of just doing it every single day, just focusing on this issue every single day, and also having a kind of community develop around the project. There is this community of people in Chicago and around the country who feed me ideas. They give me assignments because I take performance assignments, and then they become part of the work, and their ideas become part of the work, and it becomes part of this kind of greater civic dialogue, which is one of the things that I was interested in. Thank you all. Hi. We're going to do a little performance here until about 1 o'clock, and then we're going to stop. This is 739 words about loneliness. Loneliness is the ultimate lie.
Argument.
I'm really interested in engaging people in thinking about the city that we live in, first of all, as a city, as a whole community. Not just your family or your place where you work, but the fact that the city is a concept. We're all here together, and we all need to run the city. And trying to make people aware of the fact that we're surrounded in this city. We live so close together, and we're surrounded by people who are known by no one. And how is that possible? How is it possible that so many people died in this heat wave whose bodies were never identified, who were buried anonymously? And if that is the case, and those people have no family or no kind of social structures, then how do we create a city where there's some kind of fallback plan for supporting people and helping them survive something like a heat wave? And also, I'm really interested in people taking from the project whatever kind of analysis they're most interested in. So if there's a way in which this project and the heat wave can make you think about poverty in this city, or make you think about economic structures, or make you think about emergency services, and be engaged in a broader discussion about how we're running this city and how we're living all together, that's what I would really be interested in.
Sula, Tar Baby, and Song of Solomon.
Now,
I read Alice Walker's Possessing the Secret of Joy.
Followed.
I know what I was reading during that period because I have the notebook into which I meticulously copied my favorite quotes from the books in fountain pen in blue ink. And this is one I copied from Sula.
Worked.
My lonely is mine. Now your lonely is somebody else's. Made by somebody else and handed to you. Ain't that something?
Fine.
A second-hand lonely.
Whoa.
But this lonely was mine.
Bored.
Performance artist Nicole Garneau. You can track her performances by going to our website at chicagopublicradio.org/848.